What is going on, everybody? How is everyone doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. My name is Matthew, guys, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys my a little bit too early playoff predictions. So we don't even know what the playoff seeding is going to be. That's why I thought it would be fun to maybe do it. The predictions as they are now, obviously they are going to change a lot in the next month and a half when the season starts up again. They play their 9 games. We'll see maybe a new 8 seed in the West, or if the Grizzlies are going to stay, we'll probably see the same 8 in the East, and most likely the same 8, I believe, in the West. But maybe the Pelicans can get in, or the Blazers. And then obviously some teams are going to be the 2 seed, 3 seed that aren't now, and obviously they'll fluctuate in that category. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I actually kind of have a bracket generated website I found, so you can kind of actually visualize it, but I'll explain it the best I can for you guys listening on Spotify and Apple Pod, and I appreciate you guys a lot that are listening on those platforms. Last episode was really big, the mock draft episode, and yes, so today we are going to be doing the playoff bracket, and the current seeding you guys probably know, but I will explain it. So in the Western Conference, we have the 1-seeded Lakers versus the 8-seeded Grizzlies, 4-seeded Jazz versus the 5-seeded Thunder, 3-seeded Nuggets versus the 6-seeded Rockets, 2-seeded Clippers versus 7-seeded Mavericks, and in the Eastern Conference, we have the 1-seeded Bucks versus the 8-seeded Magic, 4-seeded Heat versus the 5-seeded Pacers, 3-seeded Celtics versus the 6-seeded Sixers, and then 2-seeded Raptors versus the 7-seeded Nets. Now, the reason I wanted the NBA just to skip the playoffs, skip the regular season and go straight to the playoffs, was mainly because we were going to get Boston and Philadelphia in round 1. I would love that. I would love that. That would be one of the more entertaining series, round 1 series that we have seen in years, in absolute years. This is the most parity we have seen, and I think this is going to be the best playoffs. It was supposed to be the best playoffs that we've seen. I think there's 3 teams that can win it all, that have probably the best chance, the Bucks, Clippers, and Lakers, but then there are definitely teams like the Boston Celtics, the Toronto Raptors, that could definitely win it all as well. So we're going to start, I believe, in the Eastern Conference. And the top right, so you have the 1-seeded Bucks versus the 8-seeded Magic. I got Bucks in 4. I do have Bucks in 4 now. Usually I would go in 5 just to give me some cushion there in case there's an upset, but I think the Bucks, like they did with the Pistons last year, they would just steamroll whoever they get in round 1. Now moving over to the 4-seeded Heat, or I guess we could talk a little bit more about that series. Orlando, it's going to be nice though for Fultz to get some playoff experience. Now, I don't think Isaac's coming back for the playoffs at all. Who knows what they're going to do with their front court, their crowded front court in the offseason. Maybe they'll move Gordon, maybe they'll move Vucevic, maybe they'll move Bamba. Who knows? But it's definitely going to be nice just to get them, or at least Fultz, some playoff experience. I think that's the main guy that they need here. Obviously, Isaac played in the playoffs for them last year when they ended up losing in 5 to Toronto. It's going to be another kind of disappointing season for Orlando. A lot of people thought they could be between the 4 and 6 range in seeding-wise going into the year in the preseason, and they've been very disappointing. They need offensive help. Some people thought they would maybe go out and try to trade for DeMar DeRozan at the trade deadline. Obviously, that didn't happen, and they're going to have an offseason that they don't want to be stuck in purgatory, and it's looking like that is what they are going to be. They're going to have, the 16th pick in the draft. We'll see what Chuma Okeke can do next year. Hopefully, Isaac is fully healthy because he was a breakout player in the beginning of the year, and hopefully Fultz keeps developing as well. So, yeah, I do think the Bucks are going to sweep them. Giannis, Middleton, they're basically just good enough just to beat them in their own right. And I really don't need to explain that series too much. So moving over to what's probably going to be another great series that I think can go either way. We got the Miami Heat versus the Indiana Pacers. And I'm kind of doing this a little bit off the top of my head just because I thought it would be a little bit more fun. I'm going to go Heat in 6. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So I think the Heat would win this series, and I think it would be very close, depending on how Oladipo plays, because obviously he was very rusty when he came back in the middle of the year. Yeah, he hit that game winner against Chicago in his first game back, but after that he was pretty inefficient. He wasn't driving at the rim a lot, and he definitely needs some more reps to get back to what we saw pre-injury Oladipo. Now, I think coaching, Miami definitely has the upper hand in Eric Spoelstra. They have the best player on the floor in Jimmy Butler. They have a better probably defensive scheme on that team, and they have better shooting. And I think that they would win. I think this is going to be a big national stage for Bam Adebayo. We all saw his breakout season this year. He's going to finish top 3 in most improved voting, most likely. And I think he's going to be a great player for the Heat in the playoffs. And I think that would set up a really nice round 2 matchup, Milwaukee versus Miami. And I just think, we're going to see some maybe conflict, what Nate McMillan has to do. We're going to see if he can be a good coach in this series. And we'll see. Can Bam maybe at the 5? And I don't know. Maybe in some world they put Jimmy at the 4, and then they could have Hero, Robinson, and Nunn out there. Or they can have Iguodala out there, maybe at the 4, kind of go small ball a little bit and takes a bonus off the floor. Because Miles Turner would most likely guard Adebayo in any stretch of the way, but maybe they can get Sabonis out of the game, force them to maybe have to come up with a different game plan. But I think Miami would beat them. I think they're a better coaching team. I think they're just a better overall team. I think Indiana is great, and if Oladipo is fully healthy, I would probably, like, if we got pre-injury Oladipo, I think I would take Indiana, but I'm going Miami here in 6. Now, this is going to be, I think, by far, if this ends up happening, we get these two teams in round 1, and I pray that we do. 3-seeded Celtics versus 6-seeded Sixers. This series would just be, oh my god, so much fun. I'm going to go with Boston in 7. I have not picked an upset yet, but I don't know how many there will be. But I'm going to go Boston in 7. Now, I think this, like I said, this I think would be the most entertaining round 1 series. It might be the most entertaining series in the playoffs, besides maybe the LA teams going at it. But you have probably the best player on the floor in this series is Joel Embiid, so that goes to Philly. Coaching, Brad Stevens, and the assistant coaches there in Boston, I would say they're a better coaching team. They would. You can't even say home court advantage because it's all going to be at a neutral floor site. So, honestly, home court advantage is nothing in these playoffs. So, remember that whole thing people were talking about the Lakers versus the Clippers? That basically even Clipper home games were going to be basically Laker home games. Yeah, that's not happening anymore. And I think, kind of went off topic there, but I think Boston is more of a... They have better shooting. I think defense is closer than people think. Probably the best non-rim protecting defender in this series is Marcus Smart, but Ben Simmons is a very close second. But then you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who I'd rather probably. I think I would take over the backup pair of maybe Thibault and Richardson. Yeah, I would take Tatum and Brown's defensive ability, help defense with Smart. I would take Smart, Tatum, and Brown over Simmons, Thibault, and Richardson, but those might be the best defensive wing trios in the NBA. So this would just be a great series. We know the rivalry between these teams. 2 years ago, remember they played in round 1 where the Celtics ended up winning in 5. Philly dropped on the confetti. 2 Atlantic Division teams. And I think this would just be a fantastic series. I would like to see Kemba actually play meaningful playoff games. First time we're pretty much ever seeing that, besides that one, 2016 series against Miami that they ended up losing in 5 or 6 games. So I'm really excited, and you can even tell how excited I want to be, or I would be if we got this series in round 1. I think it would be back and forth affair, and I think it would go to 7 games. I think Boston could even win this in 6. I think it's definitely going to at least 6 games. No sweeps are in 5. So I'm taking Boston in 7 here. And then Toronto versus Brooklyn. KD already said he's not playing. I don't think Kyrie's playing. I'm taking Toronto. I'm debating 4 or 5. Honestly, I'm going to go 5 just because maybe Dinwiddie and LeVert just have that one game where they go off. But I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable series victory for Toronto. Speaking about coaching, they're better coached. They're a better defensive team. They're a better offensive team. They have probably the top 3 players in this series. Well, they have the best in Siakam / Lowry, so they have 1 and 2. Honestly, you might rather have OG Anunoby than Spencer Dinwiddie. Obviously not as a playmaker, but just as an overall player. And then you have Norman Powell there as well. And Fred VanVleet, you might think, is better than Dinwiddie as well. And I think this is just a way talented Toronto's team. I think this would be a fantastic series if KD was playing. And Kyrie, but I think Toronto would win this, and I have them winning in 5, but I would not be surprised if it's a sweep. I would be pretty surprised if they ended up winning in 6 or 7, or even lost the series. So we're just going to do the first round in each conference, and then we'll kind of go into the middle. So to recap the first round in the Eastern Conference, I had the Bucks beating the Magic in 4. I had the 4-seeded Heat beating the 5-seeded Pacers in 6. 3-seeded Celtics beating the 6-seeded Sixers in 7. And then 2-seeded Raptors beating the 7-seeded Nets in 5. So in round 2, we have the 3-seeded Celtics versus the 2-seeded Raptors, and the 1-seeded Bucks versus the 4-seeded Heat. And we will get back to that in a little bit, because let's get into the Western Conference here. We have the 1-seeded Lakers versus the 8-seeded Grizzlies, and this is a lot more talented of a top 8 than the Eastern Conference. I do think the Eastern Conference's top 6 is a little bit more talented than the Western Conference's, but the 7th and 8th seeds actually can put up a fight in the Western Conference. Maybe not the Grizzlies as much, but definitely the Mavericks, because you really don't see the Magic or the Nets really doing anything in round 1. So I'm going to actually have the Lakers win in 5. I do think there's a chance that Triple J, Valanciunas, Dylan Brooks, they could steal a game, definitely. But I think the Lakers are going to comfortably win. They have the better team. They're probably better coached, but they have the best defensive player in that series in Anthony Davis. They have LeBron freaking James. Not a lot to say about that. So now we're going to get into like the interesting series here in the Western Conference. The Jazz, the 4-seeded Jazz versus the 5-seeded Thunder. And I'm going to have the Jazz, I'm going to have them win in 6, I think. I think OKC is going to be great. They're going to put up a fight in each game. You might even say they have the best player in the series in Chris Paul, but some people might say it's Donovan Mitchell or it's Rudy Gobert. They're probably going to have the Jazz I'm speaking of are probably going to have the reigning defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert 3 times in a row. I mean, actually, no. I digress. There's a good chance that Simmons, Smart, Giannis, or AD can win it. So I take that back. There's not a good chance he can win it. Defensive player of the year. There's a chance he might have the best chance, but I wouldn't say it's like it's a given. And we obviously have 9 more games to play. But OKC's been great all year. Vets like Adams, even though he was drafted in 2013, still a vet, I would say. Gallo, Chris Paul, Dennis Schroeder. They've been great all season. Dennis Schroeder, his kind of breakout sophomore year for the Thunder this year. But I think the Jazz are going to get past them. I think I could see this like being OKC up 2-1 and the Jazz win 4 or 3 straight. Something like that. Or it's 2-2 and like Jazz wins a very close game 6. And then they win like a comfortable game 7. We'll see if Conley's going to be a big player for them or not, or is he going to be as like kind of disappointing as he was in the regular season. That sets up a Lakers-Jazz second round, and we'll get to that in a second. So then we have the 3-seeded Nuggets versus the 6-seeded Rockets. And I'm going to have I'm just checking, my first upset. Yeah, we're going to have the 6-seeded Rockets win in 7. Yeah, so I'm sorry, Nuggets fans. We're going to have you guys getting dropped here in the first round in 7, and they ended up winning in 7 last year as the 2 seed over the 7-seeded Spurs, and then they ended up losing in 7 to Portland in the conference semis. But I think the 5-out's going to work, or the small ball 5 is going to work for the Rockets. Westbrook was playing like an MVP guy, not like the MVP, but an all-NBA first-team caliber player since they ended up trading Clint Capella. They're going to be fully healthy, fully rested, and I think they're going to be a force in the Western Conference. I definitely think they will be, and I think they're going to pull off the upset. We did see a 3 or a 6 seed beat the 3 seed last year in the Western Conference, so this isn't crazy to say when Portland kind of like pretty much convincingly beat the Thunder in 5 games. And I think this honestly could be a great thing for the Nuggets because I don't see them going to the finals. I see a very small chance for them going to the conference finals. So I think them losing in round 1 can kind of let Tim Connelly do some work. I think they need that second star next to Jokic. And I think Murray's a good player, and he could develop into a 25-point scorer one day. But I think you kind of need that third guy, that second scorer, because Jokic is a guy that you're not going to really ask him to drop 30 a night. You're going to ask him to drop 18, get 12 rebounds, 7 assists, and just do every little thing on the floor. And Murray is inconsistent to say. He has been in the playoffs, so you kind of need that guy. Either it's Bradley Beal, either it's Drew Holiday. I don't know. It could be somebody. Paul Millsap will be a free agent. Jeremy Grant said he's going to opt out. They do have Michael Porter Jr. Who knows if they're going to still try to develop him, or they're going to maybe try to trade him. But I think Denver having another disappointing ending for the second straight year could be, a blessing in disguise for them. And they could go out and try to actually make a trade, then being kind of complacent, and say they end up making it to the Western Conference semis. They take the Clippers to 7, hypothetically. And they're like, all right, we could run this team back again. And then you kind of get disappointed in 2021. You don't want that. You want to go all in 2021. Jokic is still very young. He's 26? Murray, 24, 23. So I do have Houston beating them in 7. I think Houston has the best player in the series in James Harden. I think they have the third best player in Russell Westbrook. I do think they're better coached than Mike D'Antoni. I would take him over Mike Malone. I think it would be a great series. I have it going to 7 games. So you could have the Nuggets winning as well. And I wouldn't be too opposed to that. And then I have the Clippers. I think this is a series. I have them beating the Mavericks in 6. But I think this is a series where Dallas is up 2-1. Or Dallas wins game 1. And Luka just goes off. He goes off. We see Luka Doncic. I'm so excited to get playoff Luka Doncic this, July. This August, which is crazy to say, not this April or May. And I think this could be a series where Luka just balls out in game 1. Not like how the Magic I guess kind of like how the Magic beat the Raptors last year in Game 1, but it's really all about Luka. And then kind of the Clippers figure out how to game plan around Luka Doncic going forward. And I think they're going to win in 6. I think they could go up like 3-1. Dallas wins Game 5, and then they end up winning in 6. Something like that. But I think Dallas is either going to take a 1-0, 1-1, or 2-1 lead. I do not see I don't see the Clippers going up 2-0. And, in a month and a half right now, I could be completely wrong. But that's just what I'm feeling. I think that the Mavericks, behind Luka, behind their shooting, behind their floor spacing, Kristaps, we're going to see first time Kristaps in the playoffs, which is I'm very excited for. I have them beating the Mavericks in 6. So a little bit more competitiveness in the Western Conference in round 1. We had 1 7-game series. We had 2 6-game series, and then 1 Game 5. So in the Western Conference, in the second round, we'll have the 1-seeded Lakers versus the 4-seeded Jazz, and then the 6-seeded Rockets versus the 2-seeded Clippers, which, boy, oh boy, Pat Bev versus Russ in round 2. Oh, my God. We're spoiled. We're spoiled fans. But let's go back here to the Eastern Conference. Bucks, the 1-seeded Bucks versus the 4-seeded Heat. This one is tough. I do have the Bucks. It's not tough. I'm debating either in 6 or 5. I'm going to say they're going to win in 5. I do. I think Budenholzer definitely might be a better coach than Spoelstra. Definitely. He could definitely be have a case for it. I'm not saying he is. But they by far have the best player in the series. Some people might say they have the second best player in the series in Middleton, at least from this 2020 season. Maybe not overall, but they're definitely a better defensive team. Even though Miami's a good defensive team, but they're a better defensive team. They're a better offensive team. They're a more balanced team. They have probably the better rim protecting center. I would rather have Brook as your rim protector over Bam. And I think we're going to see true MVP Giannis. We're going to see back-to-back MVP Giannis. He's 100% winning MVP again. And I think they would win in 5. I think it could push to 6, but I have the Bucks winning in 5. And oh boy, we're spoiled with 2 great Celtics series. We get them versus Philly in round 1, and then them versus Toronto in round 2. And you know what? I think we're going to get a third straight. I have the Celtics winning in 7. I do. Maybe in 6. Maybe in 6 could happen, but I think they're going to be very tired after this. They're going to play 2 straight 7-game series. And I do think they have maybe the upper edge in kind of versatility, where they can have maybe Gordon Hayward playing the 4, and they can maybe try to get Serge Ibaka or Gasol. They can kind of play a little bit faster pace and kind of work Marc Gasol out of this game, maybe work Ibaka out of this game, or maybe force them to play Siakam at the 5 or Ibaka at the 5 and have to push Marc Gasol out of this game. I think it's going to be a great series. It's going to be back and forth, and I think it's going into a Game 7. So when I think a series is going into a Game 7, I think either team can win. Game 7s are usually sloppy. They're usually very anxious games, and any team can win. It's back and forth, and I do have the Celtics winning at 7, which I think, oh my God. The Eastern Conference playoffs are going to be so much better than what we've seen for the last 5 years. Last year was a little bit better when we got to see the Bucks and the Raptors and the Sixers and the Celtics play. Definitely. That Sixers-Raptors series was phenomenal. Bucks-Raptors was phenomenal. But before that, when the Cavs were kind of going through the Raptors and the Wizards and the Pacers each year, it kind of got repetitive in the Celtics. But now we're getting some great Eastern Conference playoff series. And yeah, I have the 1-seeded Bucks taking on the 3-seeded Celtics in the finals. I think Jason Tatum is going to have a very good series. I think Kemba might not be the best player. I think it'll be more Jason Tatum. But I definitely think the experience and the veteranness of the Raptors, the reigning champions, they have that behind them. They want to defend their title. I think they could definitely get past the Raptors, the Celtics. But I don't want to be too lazy and too boring and have a bunch of 1 and 2 seeds in the finals, because we'll get to them in the Western Conference. 1-seeded Lakers versus the 4-seeded Jazz. I have the Lakers winning in 5, so the second straight series they're winning in 5. They have the best player. They have the best player in LeBron James, the better front court guy in Anthony Davis. It would be very entertaining to see Gobert going up against AD. The Lakers are going to play very tall, probably. I think Bojan would be healthy enough for this series, but the Lakers would play very tall with McGee, Dwight Howard, AD there at the 5 and the 4, and they could force kind of Bojan out of the game if they kind of lack rebounding, or they lack on the rebounding end. On the offensive boards, they can just crush them. And I think Donovan Mitchell can just do so much, him and Bojan, if we're really not going to get Mike Conley. I mean, Jordan Clarkson could be a very good player for the Jazz in this series. But like Jamal Murray, Mitchell does have his inconsistent games. And Rudy Gobert, yes, he might be a top 25 player in the NBA, but he's not a guy you rely on to be one of your top scoring options. So if Bojan, who's another inconsistent player, isn't on, and same with Clarkson, I think it's going to be a very rough series for the Jazz. And they're going to, Dennis Lindsey, Justin Zanuck, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and see maybe point guard isn't fit with Mike Conley, and we'll see what they do. But yeah, I have the Lakers winning in 5, and then I have the Clippers winning in 6. I have them beating the Rockets, and I think this would be, I guess, it's a disappointing end for the Rockets. I think they have championship aspirations, but I think the Clippers are just too deep. They have one of the best players in the NBA, Kawhi Leonard. You might think he's the best player in the NBA, maybe the most valuable player in the playoffs from what we've seen last year from him, and they have, I think, a better defensive team. They definitely do. They're not the tallest team, so height isn't going to be a problem for the Rockets because they might play Montrezl Harrell at the 5 and maybe some Kawhi or Paul George at the 4. Maybe they'll bring out JaMychal Green and maybe some stuff like that. But I do think the Clippers would win in 6, and I think it would be a great series. I think we're going to get Westbrook and Beverly, which I really want. So I think that'd be very entertaining. And yeah, Clippers going to 2 straight 6-game series. Round 1 against the Mavericks, round 2 against the Rockets. So my conference finals is going to be the 1-seeded Lakers versus the 2-seeded Clippers in the Western Conference, and my 1-seeded Bucks versus the 3-seeded Celtics. All right, so we're going to go to the Eastern Conference, and I think a lot of people think the Celtics could make the finals, and I'm with you. I think they definitely could, but I have the Bucks winning in 6. I think it'll be the most challenging series for the Bucks yet, but I do have them winning and advancing to the 2020 NBA Finals. I think Giannis is going to be just a force for the Celtics' kind of weaker bigs. Yes, Daniel Tice has been a very good player for them this year for the Celtics, but I think Giannis, Brook Lopez, Bledsoe, Middleton, DiVincenzo, George Hill, Wesley Matthews, they're going to be a great defensive team. And as the Celtics are a solid defensive team as well, I just think it's just going to be a little bit too much for the Celtics, and I have them the Bucks going to the NBA Finals here in 2020 in Disney. It's not going to feel like the NBA Finals. It's going to feel like we're watching Summer League or an inter-squad scrimmage, but it's going to be very entertaining nonetheless. So, yeah, I have the Bucks going to the finals. I'm not going too in-depth because it would be kind of a waste of time because this isn't the playoff bracket. I think when the playoffs come out, I want to bring on 2 of my friends, or at least 2 guests, and we can kind of come up with like a consensus playoff bracket where we're going to be discussing, debating, and we'll do a whole new bracket with 3 of us, and I think that'll be very entertaining. And we can go into each series, like why each team would win. But since this is a little premature, it's June 22nd. You guys are seeing this probably in the morning of June 23rd. This isn't going to be the actual playoff series. So I don't really think, there's probably not a good chance that the Jazz will play the Thunder in round 1. I think the playoff seeding will differentiate, and it'll be a lot different than it is right now. So that's kind of my reasoning. Well, I'm not going too in-depth. I'm going a little bit in-depth in each series, but not too in-depth. And then, yeah, here's the big one. Here's probably what you were waiting for. Lakers versus Clippers in the Western Conference. I have the Clippers in 7. My original Western Conference pick in the preseason was the Clippers. I'm going to stand by that. I did have the Sixers in the Eastern Conference, but I did change that to the Bucks around December. Yeah, my preseason was Clippers, Sixers. So I'm going to go by Clippers. I do think, like I said, I mentioned at the beginning of the pod, that due to a neutral site, no fans, it's going to be big for the Clippers, man. It's going to be big for the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard, he does not feed off the crowd whatsoever. He doesn't feed off the crowd, so he doesn't need the crowd. And it's not going to be like a one-sided Lakers affair. Because in the playoffs, if these 2 teams played, it was going to be like 80% Lakers fans, 20% Clippers fans. That's just how it was going to be, even when the Clippers were technically the home team. I think this is going to be a huge advantage for the Clippers. And they were, 2-1 against the Lakers throughout the middle of the season. I think they played 3 times, and they were supposed to play right after the tragic death of Kobe, and they postponed that. And then I don't know if they're supposed to play when the season starts back up. I do want to just kind of double check that, because maybe in the next 9 games the Clippers will be facing the LA Lakers. So yeah, NBA.com doesn't even have the next 9 games, so I don't even know if they were supposed to face them. But if they do, we'll get a little bit more of a taste to see what it's going to be like in Disney. But I do have the Clippers beating the Lakers in 7. Now, the NBA Finals, the Bucks versus the Clippers. Kawhi versus Giannis, arguably the 2 best players in the NBA. 2 of the top 3 healthy players, obviously, and then you got LeBron in there. This is tough, man. The Clippers have now played a total of 8 in round, or 6 in round 1, 6 in round 2, so 12 plus 7. That 19 games going into the finals. The Bucks, a little bit less. They're at about 8, 9 plus 6. They're at 15. So they're a couple less games. They're at 4 less games than the Clippers. I'm gonna go Clippers in 7. Yeah, I'll say 7, just because it's going to be close. Maybe it will be 6 or it could be 5. But since I think the Bucks could also win, I'm going to say it's in 7. So when I say it's in 7, any team could win. I think the Clippers are very deep. I think they're more experienced. It's going to be it's going to be a weird playoff. It's going to be a weird finals. It's not going to feel like that much pressure. It will feel very pressured and heat in the moment, but it's just going to be a little less, I guess, pressure. for these teams because there'll be no fans and it'll just feel a lot different. It'll feel like they're just going to be shooting in the gym or playing an inter-squad scrimmage against another team, basically. I guess the cameras can maybe get you up in there, and maybe a lot of players will still be here cheering on, and maybe we'll get some fan experience. So, yeah, that is going to be my playoffs. So, I did have the Clippers winning in 7 against the Bucks in the finals. My conference finals were Bucks, 1-seeded Bucks over the 3-seeded Celtics in 6, and the 2-seeded Clippers beating the 1-seeded Lakers in 7. And if you're on YouTube, you can kind of see the whole bracket. So, yeah, that is going to wrap it out for me. If you're on YouTube, you could let me know in the comments what you guys think about this. You guys show great support on the mock draft. Thank you for that on all platforms. So thank you guys. I definitely want to drop more mock drafts because we don't have the lottery for another couple months. And then, yeah, so I just appreciate all your guys' support. If you're on Apple Podcasts, if you could drop a rating and review, it means a lot to me. And you could just say what you disagree with on the review. Yeah, why not? Just hate on me. I'll take it. But yeah, give me a rating review. I would really appreciate it. And if you're on Spotify, drop a follow. It means a lot to me. So yeah, that is going to be for me. Thank you all for coming out to another episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. I'm not sure what the next episode will be. So yeah, be on the lookout for that. I think I might have on Christian again, or maybe my friend Tom. You guys saw him back in December time. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you all for coming on. I appreciate you all. And I love you guys. And I'll see you guys next episode of the pod. Peace.